And then after a year or so, we went to a commercial lender at that point and we refinanced it at 85% loan to value, where we were able to pull all of our private lenders' money back out, repay our private lenders, have permanent financing on this building that was at a much lower interest rate and also amortizing, and not have any of our own money invested in it and still have equity and still cash flow.
So at this point, when did you move from the traditional financing, traditional bank route financing, to going into either like private lending or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. So as I was going, and so I got up to 7 units through bank financing. And what I realized about that as I was kind of looking at my sort of track history at that point and approach, is that it was taking me a really long time. So I think I had an average of about 1.5 years between each purchase. And I wanted to go a little bit faster because, again, still working a ton of hours at the firm, still doing all of that, but already on the track and thinking in my head that I don't really want to continue doing this because it's, the work-life balance was really poor. So I decided and started looking around, talking to people. And, one of the sites I'm sure you're familiar, your audience probably has heard of, is BRRRR. And they were talking about the BRRRR strategy on BRRRR. And I think Brandon Turner, one of the original early on adopters of BRRRR, he's the one that kind of championed that term. And once I started looking into like what's involved with that, you can definitely do the BRRRR strategy using bank financing, but it's even better and even quicker and even more accelerated if you use private financing. And at the same time, I also came across a friend of mine. We started talking at one point and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm in real estate. I have a 6-unit property here in Schenectady, which is one of our local cities here." And I said, "Oh, okay, I have 7 units myself. You want to maybe buy something together?" And so it was 2 things happening at the same time. It was me partnering up with a friend of mine and at the same time considering this BRRRR strategy and using private financing to achieve it. And so we kind of put those 2 things together where a partnership allows you to do more and your partner can take on things that you can't maybe in the moment or in general because they have different skill sets than you, and you can complement each other. And at the same time, also borrow private money from private individuals for buying deals more quickly and coming to the table with a cash offer, quote unquote. So just to give a for instance, basically the way private financing and the BRRRR strategy would work is, let's say you're looking at a 5-unit apartment building or 5 combined units. And this was my next deal, which is exactly what we did. And normally you'd have to go to a commercial lender and it would have to be at least a 20% down type of a deal and type of financing. And you could go that route. But in our case, what helped a lot is I had befriended and ended up talking to and making a connection with a friend of one of the partners in the law firm who had some money, who was interested in investing that money. And then I had a relative who also was interested in putting their money to work and making a higher interest rate return than they would get from a savings account or even the stock market. And so we were able to pool that money together and go to the seller and say, "Hey, we're going to offer you a cash offer. We're going to waive a financing contingency. So property doesn't need to go through an appraisal and it doesn't need to go through the red tape that would be involved with a bank. And as soon as title comes in, we can close on this property at this price." And the seller was receptive to that. And that enabled us to get a little bit of a discount on the purchase price because cash is king. Even though it wasn't true cash, it wasn't our cash, it was our private lender's cash. We were able to get that deal under contract, purchase it, and start the process. And what we did then is we renovated it, we raised the rents, we put in new tenants, and then after a year or so, we went to a commercial lender at that point and we refinanced it at 80%, or I think it was 85% at the time, loan to value, where we were able to pull all of our private lenders' money back out, repay our private lenders, have permanent financing on this building that was at a much lower interest rate and also amortizing as opposed to an interest-only loan, and not have any of our own money invested in it and still have equity and still cash flow. So
hang on one second. I want to unwrap that real quick because you were able to, in 1 year's time, you were able to take the building. We'll say it was worth, I'll use Buffalo numbers. We'll say it was worth $100,000.
Yes.
You put money into it, rehabbed it out. We'll say the rehab cost you 50.
Yep.
This building is now worth 200.
Yes.
You were able to refinance it after the first year, pay off your private money guy for his 100 because you were just paying interest on that loan.
Yep.
You were able to pay off all of the rehab costs, the 50,000, and you were able to refinance it at 80% loan to value. So essentially at that point, you were able to pull another, if my math is right, 80% loan to value would be what, 160? So there's an extra 10 grand there, money that you could pull out. And that's tax-free money, by the way, to put back in your pocket to essentially pay you guys back for whatever you had for a down payment on the initial purchase.
Right. And that's exactly right. And the numbers were slightly higher than that on all ends of it, but it was very, very much exactly what happened. And like I said, we didn't have any of our own money invested in the property. We did the rehab with private money. We did the purchase price with private money. And there was a little bit of a cushion over and above what the private money totaled out to be from the proceeds of the commercial loan, that we were able to pay ourselves a little bit extra over and above. Knowing, also keeping in mind that the appraised value was even higher, obviously at the 100% of appraised value still gave us a equity cushion in the property. And once this process sort of worked out for us, and once I saw it in practice, not just on Bigger Pockets and hearing about it and kind of theorizing about it, that's when it was like, wow, we can really scale this. We can really take this to another level. And as long as you can find additional or good private money lenders with sufficient cash to lend to you, you can probably do more than one deal at a time, which is what I'm doing now. And that way you can do several deals a year. And nowadays I'm adding probably 20 to 30 units to my portfolio every single year for the last 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this type of scaling. And so that was the real catalyst for being able to take the portfolio from 7 units in 2015 to, it's going to be almost 150 units in the next month or so.
That was the gas on the fire, basically the BRRRR method and being able to find that private financing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's what we've done.